Step into the world of Founders Dinner. Stories of entrepreneurial wins, losses, and lessons. Where the essence of entrepreneurship is unraveled in its most authentic form. Stas Balanevsky serves as your guide on this journey of discovery and inspiration. In each episode, Stas brings together entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds to share their stories. It's not just about their victories, but more about the resilience and adaptability they've shown in the face of adversity. These narratives are more than just stories. They are lessons in courage, determination, and the relentless pursuit of success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, dreaming of launching your first venture, or an established business leader seeking new perspectives, Founders Dinner is your invitation to explore the transformative power of entrepreneurship. And now, without further ado, let's welcome the host of Founders Dinner, Stas Balanevsky.
Welcome to the Founders Dinner podcast. I'm your host, Stas Balanevsky. I have the pleasure of having Michael Williams as my guest today. Michael, how are you, sir?
I am doing good, Stas. How are you, sir?
I am awesome. So, team, full disclosure, episode 4, very excited. There will be bugs, there will be kinks. We'll work them out. Michael and I go back quite a few years. We've become good friends just in running into each other professionally a couple times. And now we do a lot of stuff together. Michael's agency, Williams Media, they are my go-to whenever I have really high-end clients that really want to move the needle digitally. And we'll get into all of that. This is not a commercial for Williams Media. This is just a disclosure phase of we're friends and we do a lot of work together. So,
very good.
Having said that, Michael, I want to start with your entrepreneurial journey, right? Pretty typical. Where you been? Where are you going? Can you tell me your story?
So to be brief, at least at the onset, because I have a feeling we might be getting into some more specifics as we go. So I started Williams Media almost like accidentally when I was 27. This is the same year I got married, and it was about 10 years ago. That was really, like I said, it was almost accidental. I was working for my dad and my uncle's company at the time. They run an environmental remediation and demolition company. And I was working in sales and marketing for them. And if you can imagine I hope they don't listen to this, but if you can imagine what marketing materials put together by construction people look like, that's what I had to work with to help to sell these services. Now they work all over the country with big companies like Dow Chemical and Honeywell. And I have these construction guy marketing materials that I have to work with. And so I really just started building and designing stuff that I needed to use to do my job. And one day my uncle brought me into his office. He was like, "You're pretty good at this. Like, you probably could do it for other people." And I was like, I never thought about that. So I grew up like around business, like my family's all in business, but I had no interest in doing it. And then I accidentally stumbled upon some stuff I was pretty good at. And after pretty much maybe a year or so after that point, I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh and I did some more formal training and such, and then really started the company without knowing what the heck I was doing. And so here we are 10 years later, thankfully. My kids are fed. Thank God for that. So that's where I've been. There's some stuff in between there, but that's how it started. Yeah.
That's awesome.
No great vision, no world-changing focus. It was really like, I guess I could do this. And that was it.
That's awesome. And
yeah.
Where are you headed?
Where am I headed? Well, now our focus really is to make our clients and our partners' VTO come true. So if you're not an EOS person, a VTO is your vision traction organizer, or for normal people, you get to say your growth goals. Every business owner they have a dream, something they want to accomplish, a place they want to get to. And I think it's more than just about lining the pockets of business owners or giving them another pat on the back for their ego. But when a company does well, the impact of a company doing well goes so far beyond the entrepreneur or the business owner. It impacts their team and their team's families. It impacts the community. It impacts individuals. And so I think our heart really is to see companies do well and to be even just a little part of their growth and to watch that change a community and change individuals' lives. So that's really where that's like our pie in the sky mission, what drives us, our why, if you will. But really, oh, go ahead.
That's awesome. Now I remember where this came from. I was having a conversation with yesterday, actually. We were doing some filming and I was having a conversation with a charity that I'm working with. And I'm using a lot of commercial terms that don't live in the charity world.
Sure.
I said exactly what you said, that forgetting charity for a second, if we create a vibrant and successful ecosystem of businesses, that feeds a great many people and that feeds a great many charities. Because good people give to needy charities that do good for things that they believe in. So there have to be commercial enterprises. Otherwise, only looking for legacy money.
Yeah.
We have to be creators and doers and we have to do things.
Yeah, 100%.
So
I think I spent a long time actually working in a ministry for a church. It's a lot of the work that I did outside of the company was very volunteer oriented, mission oriented. And I always struggled with this sacred or secular. What is the more important thing? It always felt if you're in the church world, it's like, obviously the sacred work is more important. Work for God is more important. And I think as I've gone through the past decade and a half of this whole experience together, I think what you're saying, they should go together. There should be no real separation between sacred and secular. It should be anything that is producing value is inevitably going to produce value for other people. And that includes the needy and the hungry and the broken. And I think at least the way we look at it as a company is much more, I don't know if holistic is the word, but less clear separation between those two things.
Yeah, it's doing good work.
Mm-hmm.
Define it as you will.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yes.
That's awesome. And also, that's how you guys carry yourself. Like, you actually walk that talk a lot, which is cool.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So we can spend an entire podcast talking about all your wins. And there have been many. But I don't think you learn a lot by winning. I think you learn a lot by missteps, stumbles, wrong turns, and, I know you've taken some of those too. So what I'd love for you to give our listeners is a peek into the world of a founder and an entrepreneur that made a decision. It didn't turn out to be the home run that you thought it was going to be. And then I'd like to unpack it.
Yeah.
Get into the thought pattern, the thought process, what was the data that you used to get to that decision? How do we figure out it was wrong? Mm-hmm. And then after that, I'd like to talk about lessons learned.
Okay. All right. So
yeah.
With that?
I said it's big and it's heady. No one's going to be like, so what I did is I made some bad decisions and I made a lot of good decisions. And now 10 years later, here I am in multiple cities with all of these blue chip clients and it's an awesome firm.
Yeah.
Like that middle.
Okay. To your point, and also full disclosure, Stas is our EOS implementer. So he's like our business therapist in many ways. So he's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So when he says, I know you've made a few missteps, he's not just saying, I'm assuming you have, he actually knows and has helped us work through some of those missteps. But I think like I think any business owner, it's almost a rite of passage where you would overpromise something to a client because you're real hungry for work and totally blow the project or severely underdeliver on the project. I've done that once or twice, especially in our early years. I think people have that. They have that story. I don't think you can be a good business person unless you've had a story like that.
Yeah, that's required reading. That's the 101 stuff.
And to the people who were on the receiving end of that, I'm very sorry. Thank you for helping me learn my lesson. I know it was expensive for you, but I appreciate you. So I think I've made some of those mistakes. I've made mistakes of hiring people because I like them, even though they weren't a good fit, or keeping people on too long, even though they would be better suited elsewhere. But I think if I think about it, the biggest mistake that I've made wasn't so much in taking an uncalculated risk or betting the farm. It was more of an internal thing. And I would say it's like in this, like comparing myself to other agencies. Okay. So I think competition is amazing. I would not have thought I was a competitive person. I'm competitive in things like who can spit a watermelon seed the farthest, right? Like stupid things that nobody cares about. I love competing with those types of things. I feel like I can win them, but I don't like competing if I don't think I can win. Strangely,
Oh,
what's that?
but point of order, were you not a sponsored athlete as a youth?
That I can get into that for sure. But that's the thing. It's like when I was younger, so maybe I'll start there. Let me maybe introduce the point. So the point is like the fine line between competition and comparison, right? Competition's amazing. Comparison can be terrible. For me, competition, it didn't previously do this, but it does this now. It inspires me to do better. But comparison is like this deficient mentality that just makes me feel terrible about myself, right? Because it's like the social media world we live in now, where it's so easy to compare yourself to other people. And excuse me, if you are not careful, you weigh the highlight reel that you see from somebody else against your day to day, and your day to day looks like garbage compared to what other people are doing. And so I think like when I started the agency, like I said, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I didn't even know that what I was doing was an agency. So I had like started like doing some design work and doing some websites, doing some branding, and somebody referred to me as an agency, and I was like, is that what I do? Is this an agency?
That's awesome.
And then so I was so clueless. Okay, I had no clue what I was doing. So I just wanted to design stuff and help businesses. And it wasn't really until someone referred to us as an agency that I even knew that we fit into a category at all. As things began to progress and I became aware of all the other agencies and what they were doing, I was like, man, the gap between where I am and where they are, it was just this constant sense of, or a source of discouragement for me. I was just bummed out all the time. I was fine before that. Before I knew I was running an ad agency, I was great. But once I started noticing all these other people who were doing apparently the thing that I was doing, but just at a way higher level, it was like, this sucks. It feels terrible. And so I didn't give myself a lot of slack when I was younger. Even though I was very green, I still held myself to these really high standards. But I would weigh myself against guys who had been in it for a decade or decades. And that really kept me on this treadmill for a super long time. Throughout that experience, we started having some success. We started hiring more people and bringing on new clients, and people were referring business to us and telling their friends. And even some of these people who we were looking up to, or I was looking up to at the time, we started winning projects against them. Like we would go toe to toe with them and we would win, which was like, this was crazy. But the difficult part of it was no matter how much success we had, it always felt like we were behind. And it felt like I was behind. I had been skateboarding and playing in punk bands as a kid. And so I was wasting my youth. I could have been studying after my dad or my uncles or any of the successful business people around me, but I was just screwing around. I didn't see it as such at the time, but looking back, it was like, I wish I would have done some stuff differently.
It's interesting. Let me stop you there because there's two things that I want to hit. One, the comparison versus competition, I think, is really, really important. Mm-hmm. And let me take you on a tiny little personal journey. One of the things that happens when your formative years have something in it, you either do more of that or you rebel against it, right? Like anytime I was talking about this I have an opinion on refugees because I'm a refugee.
Right.
I'm not going to be tepid. I'm either going to be hot or cold.
Yes.
And the comparison thing, which is interesting, right? Because I came to the US as a refugee. My dad was an engineer, and he always compared me to other people, always compared me to their wins, never to their losses or anything else. And I vowed never, ever, ever to compare my kids. And we had the conversation of, listen, if you tell me so-and-so gets to do this because then you're giving me license to say so-and-so has a 4.0 because either become your own person and do the thing and be the best you that you can be.
Absolutely.
Or you give me ammunition to compare if you start that.
Mhm.
Let's just get these rules. And they were like, no comparison, please. I was like, beautiful decision.
Yeah.
And we've done none of that.
And that's a big deal. That's a big deal, especially
yeah,
growing up. That's a huge deal because kids do it to themselves anyways.
yeah, this was
The last
before
thing they need
social
is a
media,
parent to.
right?
Oh, this is pre-social media.
Yeah, I'm talking.
You can't tell, but I have some gray hair going there. I'm pre-social media, folks.
Right. Right. But so the comparison versus competition, I love that because I'm lucky to know a lot of really great athletes that have been on the top step of many podiums. And the ones that are really amazing are like, yeah, I want to crush you on your best day.
Yeah.
I don't want you to trip and fall and for me to run past you.
No.
Like
No,
I want
on
you,
your best day.
yeah, I want you to have a personal record and I still want to beat you.
Absolutely.
Those are the guys that I remember. I remember sitting at a table at a presentation. It's a world champion sailor, and there was a table of kids, juniors, I mean, like probably 14 and 19 years old. And there was a big regatta coming up, and the guy raised his hand. He said, "Hey, David, I just want to know when do you put the game face on?" And he looked that kid dead in the eye, looked right through him, and he goes, "Now, my game face is on now. You will notice tomorrow morning I will be the first boat out, and you'll notice that I will likely also be the first boat to cross the finish line." And
That's awesome.
And that next morning, most kids would be rolling out at 9 o'clock. There were boats on the water at 7:30, and they were all the junior boats because they were like,
Sure.
we get to race against a world champion. We're going to do what he does. It was the coolest thing. But he was just like, this was not rehearsed. This was like bang reaction. Like, when does my game face go on? Now. It's on,
buddy.
now at the dinner before the regatta.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was like, I'm a little stunned.
But I would, oh, go ahead, please.
No, and the other thing is, I remember being on the receiving end of one of your pitches against two of your competitors that I'm sure your head trash was like, no way we're winning this, right? Blue chip client against two of the best agencies in Buffalo, right? And I was on the receiving end of the pitch because I was working for the target. That was the first time we interacted. And I remember, after the third group left the room, I'm like, so Williams, right? They're like, no, we have to give it some thought. I'm like, that's dumb. That is just silly because I came from a deep web background. I'm like, you don't know what you don't know. And these guys know stuff that I don't know. And let's go.
Yeah. And actually, we have a meeting with them on Friday. Again, that was about 4 years ago. We're still working with them.
That's amazing.
Yeah, funny.
Yeah.
But so I think that, like, to go back to this idea of comparing, like, the struggle that I had and comparing myself to all these people who appeared to be killing it, it sucked because I was unable to enjoy the success I was having. Like, remember how I started, right? I had no idea what I was doing. And now I'm starting to see, like, my team grow. We're starting to make some money. We're starting to, like, win projects against people who actually know what they're doing. And it was like, it was terrible because I became so obsessed with other people's success that I couldn't enjoy my own. And I now know, like, I've spoken with a lot of these people who I still look up to them, but now they're more peers of mine. And I've had conversations with them and with other business owners over the years. And you realize that everybody deals with stuff. Everybody has the opportunity to look at their competitor and think, man, we suck. Mm-hmm. That is it's a common theme amongst entrepreneurs. Like, obviously I work in design and marketing, so I'm always dealing with other businesses and other business owners. And it's very uncommon for me to not develop a friendship with the people I work with just because whatever, that's how we are. And you end up, just yesterday I had a conversation with a guy who was like telling me, as a client of ours, who's telling me about some stuff that they're going through. And we're working through it together and encouraging each other and all that kind of stuff. But it's normal. And I think that I would call it like it's the entrepreneurial treadmill, right? Where you're like, I ran hard and fast on that sucker for years. And sometimes I still hop on to get a little workout in. But it stole cherished time that I could have enjoyed with my wife, especially those first, like I said, we got married the first year I started the company. She's only known stressed Mike. It really is just the past couple of years that there's been some stuff shifting around and changing. But like I squandered some of that time that I could have enjoyed. Before my daughter was born, we had a whole year that we could have been enjoying newlywedness, and there wasn't a lot of that. Not that it wasn't great, but I was stressed. And a lot of it, I think, now looking back, comes from that. It's comparing yourself, and it's like weighing yourself against something that you could never measure up to because you've made it up in your mind. You don't know what they're going through, what they're dealing with, what their P&L looks. You have no clue, but you fabricate it in your mind. And I think sometimes what can happen is we use that as like a motivation technique. And I think that it's short-sighted. It's like eating a bunch of sugar and thinking that's going to give you the energy you need to run the race. It's not. You need complex food to run an endurance sprint or an endurance marathon, whatever. And so I think when we use like motivation like that to fuel us, it's, at least for me, man, it's not good. It's not good. So what's the complex food?
Like
I backed myself into a metaphor and I have to support.
Yes, you do.
Okay. So I guess I'll give you some additional context to this situation, right? I told you a little bit about how the agency started, stumbling into that. But going like back even before then, like I never excelled in school. I did lousy. I'd never excelled in like normal things that like this would indicate you're going to be successful if you do well in these things. So my parents did not really feel super good about my future when I was younger. And I have a twin sister too, who's also very, very smart. She's an educator. She's extremely intelligent and was always very intelligent. But I was a sponsored skateboarder at 13. I played in punk bands and wrote punk music, and I was pretty good, but I wasn't Tony Hawk and I wasn't Jimi Hendrix. I was decent, we'll say. I wasn't pro level for sure. And once I stumbled, like when I was young, it was fine. But when I stumbled into my adult years, I realized I need to do something that makes more financial sense. And I was lost. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I had grades that were abysmal. So it's not like I could go and figure it out at a decent school. Not that I went to Buffalo State, so rock and roll Buffalo State. Decent school, but not great. And I went there with no real focus. I just went to school because that's what you do. And I told you I was surrounded by business people, but I had no interest in business at all. Zero. And I think if you lined up 15 of my family members 15 years ago and asked them, what's Michael going to be doing in 15 years? They would say, I hope he's able to feed himself producing music or something. It just was not, it wasn't like I had this clear track of, oh, he's going to go do this and be super successful. It was like, I don't know what the heck Mike's going to do. I hope it works out for him. But like, when I got into business, I didn't think I was like any of the successful business people I had ever met. I was like, I'm a C student at best. I'm a skateboarder. I like fast music, like going to bed early. Like I'm a simple man. I don't have these grandiose dreams of building a multi-billion-dollar business and changing the world. Like I didn't know about any of this stuff. And so I soon realized that most of the successful people I know are also C students, which was really helpful to learn, but I didn't know this at the time. So once again, I'm comparing myself, even like within my family, right? I'm seeing like all of my family members and they're amazing people and they've always been super supportive and really encouraging and they're great. But I see all their success and I'm like, this isn't something I could do. These guys are all way smarter than me. And then I come to realize some of them didn't even graduate high school or barely graduated high school. I'm like, how come you guys didn't tell me this? Like we're the same person. So I think I had this context that I lived within, but a lot of it was fabricated. And I think sometimes we do that. We fabricate the success of other people. Not that we should minimize it, but we also shouldn't glorify it as though what we see is all there is to it, or not considering the sacrifice that got them to where they're at right now. So this was like my first few years in business. I just felt like I was in a losing battle. And even when I was winning, I still felt like I was losing. I still felt like I was so far behind, all this type of stuff. I hope this is like the type of stuff you wanted to talk about on your podcast, and maybe it's a little too down, but I think is this part of what you want to talk about?
This is exactly what I want to talk about.
Okay.
There will be someone that is going to have the exact same opinion about themselves and about the competition as you, and they are going to be inspired or at least have another perspective where they go, maybe what I'm seeing, feeling, thinking isn't actually true.
Yeah. Okay. Good. As long as I have your permission to proceed.
No.
All right. So to go back to okay, that's the intro to the story. There's another little chunk of the story. We're going to get back to that. What's the complex meal you need to go the distance? So I'm born and raised in Buffalo. I lived there for 34 years. Towards the end of 2020, we came down to Charlotte, North Carolina. My family and I have two small kids. And we came towards the end of December. And so we ended up spending Christmas here, moved into the new year. And actually at the time, my wife's Canadian, fun fact. So we lived in Canada just across the bridge. And so I'd go back and forth for work and whatever. In Canada, got locked down real hard right after the new year at the beginning of 2021. So we were like, we're not going to go home and do this lockdown thing again. And we just ended up staying in Charlotte. We were just like waiting it out. And 5 months goes by and my real estate agent calls and people from Toronto are moving out of Toronto and they're buying up all the houses on your street. Do you want to sell your house? I was like, we haven't been there for a long time, so we probably should at least try. So 2 weeks later, we had an accepted offer. My wife was like, go home, pack the stuff up. I'm staying here with the kids. We came to Charlotte and we fell in love with this place, man. And not that we don't love Buffalo or where we're from, but we came here and we felt like we got to be here. And so she was like, okay, go for it. And so I came home, packed the house up, made our way back here. And then really it was like what I think happened was for the first time, I felt like a complete nobody, which is a weird thing to say. It's not like I was some celebrity in Buffalo, but when you grow up in an area, your family, I have a big family. My family's all there. The kids I went to middle school with are there. You have this perception that everyone's there. And I think once again, like our brains can lie to us or our minds can lie to us. And I think what happened was for the first time, I was able to like think about myself and my company and my family apart from any of those outside pressures, real or imagined. And I'm thinking, like, who do I want to be? Not just who do I want to be like today, but who do I want to be going forward? What do I want for my life and for my family? And what do I want for my company? So mind you, at this point, we're 7 years into the company. And for a lot of this time, I had been doing this comparison thing way more than focusing on the inspiration of competition. I'm focusing more on the despair of comparison. And so during this time, I really began to discover and to explore what mattered to me. And at the same time, we were implementing EOS with Stas, and that helped provide like a bit of a framework to test and prove some of the things that we were exploring with regard to the company. And it's so crazy because, and I think in prepping to come on with this, I'm thinking like, I know Stas is going to want to talk about stuff that's like, what mistakes have I made? How have I learned from them? Blah, blah, blah. And I became aware of this very, very recent story of we got this RFP from a large organization, and it would have ended up being our largest project to date. We put together just a killer proposal and a presentation. We actually presented in person, which if you can imagine, I don't know if you've ever done that before, but it was the weirdest thing because I haven't done that in years. So Jeremy flew in, John was here, we went to the presentation, we sat in a boardroom like business people do, and we gave this presentation. It was super fun. And when I say it with no arrogance, like we absolutely killed it. But at the end of the project, or at the end of the presentation, they were all like, this was amazing, it was so refreshing, thanks for such a great job, whatever. I'm talking with the guy throughout the week, asking questions, whatever. I get a call maybe 10 days ago. Hey, Michael, you guys are amazing. You're awesome. And I was like, oh, man. So we can't give you the project. And I was like, why not? He said, our timeline's really short and you guys are a pretty small firm. And we've got some other firms who bid on the project who are much larger, and we're more comfortable with a larger team because we don't know if you guys have the capacity. And I was like, I respect that. That's fine. And so I was bummed we didn't get the job. But after we hung up the phone, I realized they sent an email to all of the agencies with all of the agencies not BCC'd on the email. So I could see all the agencies who were bidding the project, right? So it's a little bit of, I think it's just a mistake, but I knew all the agencies this is during the RFP process. So before we even put anything together, I knew all the agencies we were competing against. And I realized after the fact, I didn't look at any of them. I didn't go to their websites. I didn't scope them out. I didn't any of it. And while we lost the project, I felt like I didn't compare myself to them. I said, John, Jeremy, because they were primarily the guys in my team that we put the proposal together with. I said, we're going to do our thing. We're going to go there and give them the best that we've got. Forget everybody else. We're not wearing special clothes. We're not practicing our corporate jargon. We're going to go there and give them exactly who we are. So much so that I told you, we love Charlotte. And actually, in talking about our move to Charlotte and how my experience with my family has been able to enjoy as a result of moving here, really with my kids and stuff like that, to not get too personal about it, but I actually started crying. I got choked up during the presentation. So I'm in a boardroom, 15 people, and I start getting choked up. Like, you're not supposed to cry during a pitch. It's not good for business. But I was like, you know what? I said, guys, this is what you get. When you work with us, like, we're unnecessarily passionate, and that's how it goes. So much so that, like, we went in there and I actually cried during the presentation. But it really, to us, it was a win, even though we didn't win the project. It was a win because we showed up there and we were only focused on competing with ourselves. We were only focused on being the best that we possibly could be and communicating that in the clearest way possible. And I believe we did that. So I don't know if that, I think if to go back to the metaphor that we started accidentally, competing against yourself is the best way to have energy and sustenance for the entrepreneurial journey, which is long and arduous and difficult and freaking amazing. You have to, if you focus so much on competing with other people and beating other people, it's short wins. And then even when you win, then you need the next hit. You need the next dopamine hit to get by. When you are committed to doing something and doing it, that becomes fuel for you. When you box out everyone and everything else, not that you don't use that as inspiration, but the moment it becomes that, that feeling when you're comparing yourself to somebody who's apparently better than you, that feeling doesn't make you feel empowered. It makes you feel small. Mm-hmm. And I think it helps to focus on celebrating the success of others, not downplaying it. Because a lot of times you can be like, oh, he cheated to get there, or they were greasing the palms of this guy or that guy. It's like, that does not serve you well. Right. What serves you well is assuming that they worked really hard and did all the right things to get there, and you can do the same. Because excusing or dismissing their success, it just says that you got insecurity issues, man.
Yeah, it's interesting. So two things are blowing up in my head right now. One, this is what running your own race looks like. Right, understanding product market fit and all of the block and tackling of business, blah, 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 blah. Like, you weren't going in there saying, hey, so instead of any media, I think what you should do is you should spray paint squirrels with your logo and release them in a park, right? You weren't like,
no.
I mean, like, you were in bounds, but you ran your own race.
Yes.
And the other thing is, and this is something that you and your team are absolutely guilty of, which is that huge abundance mindset. There's plenty for everybody. And if we all do a good job, we can all eat.
Yeah.
You can still compete.
Yeah.
All right. We can compete. And when you win on your best day, I'll give you a high five. When I beat you on your best day, you'll give me a high five. But at the end of the day, we're all out there trying to serve a whole bunch of people to make sure that everybody wins.
Yeah. And I love, like, what you said about the racing guy, or I don't know if it was an example that you gave, but I want to beat you on your best day.
Yeah.
I don't want you to, like, stub your toe mid-race and then I win by default. And I think that even when you're motivated to beat other people, I feel like something's twisted about that. I don't want to be motivated to beat other people. I want to be motivated to beat myself. And I think by default, you will beat other people. But if your motivation is to beat other people, I feel like there's something that's like, it's like same output, different motivation. Mm-hmm. I think if you can switch that motivation up, and this is just I'm testing this out, folks. This is new for me. Past couple of years is pretty new for me. So I'm not saying this is put this on stone tablets or anything like that. But I think if you focus on beating yourself and getting better every day yourself and less about the other people who you're competing with, and you focus on that, you're going to win 10 times more.
And yes, and here's another thought that triggered in my head with your background in skating, your background in music. I have a background in skiing. There's a whole lot of fandom and peer review that happens in all of those sports.
Sure.
If you look at the king and queen of Corbett's couloir, right? Skiers going into this thing where like the physics shouldn't work.
Yeah.
Doing these amazing death-defying things, there are no judges. It is athlete judged. Right? You look at skateboarding, a lot of it is athlete judged. You look at the battle of the bands, right? That is not panel judged.
It's subjective.
Yeah,
it's completely subjective.
But it's judged by fans. You are a huge fan of good work. So when someone wins and they produce really good work, you're like, I love watching this. I love standing at the bottom of a ski race being like, oh, wow, I'm in a really good spot. And I watch someone race. I'm like, he is having an amazing run. This is so much fun to watch. And then I get smoked. I'm like, not my day. Not my day. Definitely his day. And that was amazing because he took risks I was not willing to take because I'm in my 50s.
Barely. Okay. Barely.
Still. But I think what it boils down to is if you're a huge fan of the people that are in your space and you win and they win and you're competing and you're trying to beat each other, but you're not comparing yourself to each other, that sense of community, if you can truly build that abundance mindset, we have that here with the EOS implementers in Buffalo.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
There is a first EOS session going on 20 feet away from me. And I think I'm more jazzed than that implementer.
Right.
I know what it's going to look like for him. And he's my first one.
Totally.
My first one of 1,000. Let's go. Right?
Completely.
It's awesome. So if you were to distill down that complex meal that is going to give someone the energy to be on the treadmill of entrepreneurship and succeed, what's your advice? What's your soundbite?
I think it's because it's a lot of the stuff that I shared, but like the problem is comparison will steal from you. And like living with this, like you are experiencing wins every single day. And like in business, like every day is a series of challenges. But more often than not, you win. If you're staying in business, like I've been in business for 10 years now, like I have more wins than I have losses. But I don't know that I've been able to acknowledge that up until maybe the past couple of years. Because when you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, you're never as good as them. You're always seeing their absolute best and weighing it against your absolute worst. And it's a thief that will come to steal the enjoyment that you can experience on your entrepreneurial journey. So I think don't be motivated to beat other people. Be motivated to beat yourself. And stop comparing yourself to other people, compete with them and be inspired by them. And I think to that point, even if you have to fake it at first, celebrate people who are doing things well. Celebrate people who are doing what you do, but better than you. Don't tear them down. Don't find ways to pick apart their strategy I have a friend of ours who is insanely smart, and he is the most technical and brilliant person I've ever met in my life. And he can find something wrong with any person's website or marketing strategy, and he can do it not just in a subjective way, oh, they use the wrong color blue. He can tear it apart from a technical code line by code line. And you can do that if you want. I know people who can help you do that if you want to do that, but I don't recommend it. It does not bring you joy. It does not, and that sounds a little flowery, but you don't have to be a bummer for your whole career, for your whole time in business. You don't have to be a bummer for your kids and for your family. You don't have to be bitter and be grouchy, and you don't have to be that way. But I think sometimes when that stuff creeps in, that comparison, it starts messing with it messes with our own sense of value and messes with our egos if we're not careful about it. And I think I've just gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't really care anymore. Not that I don't have moments where I need to check myself. I absolutely do. But I think I've felt, and the people around me who I care dearly about have also felt what that type of, how that approach affects you and affects me. And I'm just done with it. My encouragement to you, the lesson, I don't know if that's by no means distilled, so do with that what you want. But just focus on getting better yourself and celebrate where you've come, how far you've come, celebrate how far other people have come. And like I've heard it said some type of way, I'll probably ruin the quote, but you can't have what you criticize, or you can't experience what you criticize. So if you see somebody else who's doing 10 times more than you, and you're like, yeah, but those guys are blah, 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 whatever. Good luck getting there. Good luck getting there. You're better off to find something that they did that's awesome, and maybe you take a play out of their book, but don't criticize them. Celebrate them, and then get back to yourself. Get back to your company. Get back to your team.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Buddy, that is going to help people. It's fabulous. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm really grateful that you shared this with us. And yeah, hey, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. So I guess with that concludes this week's episode of the Founders Dinner podcast. Those looking to connect with Michael Williams, his link is going to be in the description. And this is Stas Balanevsky signing off. I'll see you all next week.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Founders Dinner, stories of entrepreneurial wins, losses, and lessons. Once again, we've journeyed through the inspiring and challenging world of entrepreneurship with Stas Balanevsky, uncovering stories that illuminate the resilience and adaptability at the heart of success. Each narrative shared today is a testament to the unyielding spirit of our entrepreneurial guests, providing lessons in courage and determination. We hope these stories have not only entertained, but also inspired you. Whether you're taking the first steps in your entrepreneurial journey or are a seasoned leader in the business world, Founders Dinner is more than just a podcast. It's a community of learning, inspiration, and connection. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more insightful episodes and join our vibrant LinkedIn community to continue the conversation, share experiences, and connect with like-minded entrepreneurs. Until next time, keep embracing the entrepreneurial journey. This is Stas Balanevsky, thanking you for being a part of the Founders Dinner family. See you at the next dinner.